So it's my pleasure to now introduce our next presentation, Miss Alicia McArdle. She's the Marine Program Manager for Mars Incorporated. She has an honors degree in marine biology from the University of Queensland and is a certified ecological restoration practitioner with the Society of Ecological Restoration. Her career has been varied with experience in the fields of marine science, catchment management, and waste management across both public and private sectors. Alicia's role at Mars involves managing the coral reef restoration program across Oceania and East Africa, as well as serving as the global manager of a training program in the reef restoration methods that Mars has developed. She's based in Australia and has been responsible for the introduction of Mars to the Great Barrier Reef, where it's now installed at 3 sites in conjunction with other restoration techniques as part of a mixed restoration approach. Please join me in welcoming Alicia.
Hi folks, so I'm actually going to start off with a video. I thought that'd be the best way to explain what Mars does. A lot of people know Mars as a large chocolate bar company. We also have a lot of pet care businesses and that sort of thing, and we're not very well known within the Mars in the restoration area. I hope that's changing, and so I thought I'd show you a video to start with and we can go from there. So take it away. So I hope that gave you a good idea about what we do. We've been going on in this program for around 15 years, and when Tom asked us to present today, I was thinking about, we could go really big level, or we could go into the weeds a little bit, and that's what I've chosen to do today. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the obstacles we've faced during this journey, and also some of the solutions we've been able to work out as well. So Mars, or the Mars Assisted Reef Restoration System, it was developed to solve a specific set of problems. And those problems is what you see there on the left-hand side. It was literally massive areas of unconsolidated coral rubble that we were seeing in Indonesia. Those areas had been dynamite fished for about 30 years ago, and there had been no signs of natural recovery. So the idea of Mars was to be able to develop a cost-effective solution that would be able to fix that problem. We wanted to be able to include community, to be able to provide that social licence, and we also wanted it to be portable. We take it out to other areas around the world that also needed this help, using a set of standard operating procedures. And that's where the Reef stars were born. Now, I've heard a few of you folk are a little bit sceptical about what Mars system looks like and is it actually real? Well, that photo on the right was actually taken when Julie Burwald, one of the other speakers, was out with us, and that reef is 3 years old, and it's insane when you actually get to go out there and have a look. It's an amazing experience to be able to see these reefs and how quickly they're restored. So I think the other part is it's the coral triangle. Corals grow a lot differently there than they do here in the Caribbean. So our mission within the Coral Reef Restoration Program within Mars is to prevent the extinction of high-value coral reefs that stand the greatest chance of survival. And the way we do that is by restoring reefs at an ecological scale. We catalyse partnerships and we build restoration capacity. So to give you an idea of our breadth and our scope, we're now across 7 different countries around the world, and we're nearing around 60,000 reef stars in the water. So it's around the 800,000 to 900,000 corals in the water. So it's quite large. So some of those obstacles that we've been seeing through these years of working. First one, I think everyone here would have the same feeling: cost. Restoration is expensive. How do we bring that cost down to make it easy for people to be able to do and for governments to be able to do around the world? So the idea is for us, has been about using local materials that are easily available and that they're cheap. So those reef stars are literally made from steel rebar that have been coated in sand and resin. But with being working with Mars, we have this business mindset, and that was different from me coming from a different organisation as well. And it did help that one of the founders of this project was the manager of the chocolate business in Indonesia. So he had a really good business mindset and was able to look about dealing with efficiencies. And so by determining what sort of output we needed, we were able to bring those costs down per coral, which was really useful. It also provided us this opportunity for microfinancing, which you see up the top there, and so including the local communities in that building process and giving them an opportunity to be able to make a business out of it. We've now moved a little bit further about working with purpose-led brands, which is what the Hope Reef area is all about, and I'll be talking about that a little bit further on Thursday. Capacity is what I feel is one of our biggest bottlenecks. So we have a training program, but the idea is we want to make sure that information is actually really technically correct. The last thing we want is people being able to go out there and all these reef stars washing up in the water, on a beach, for example. That's the last thing we want. So it's about trying to get the right information out there without compromising our technique. So we do a top-down and a bottom-up approach. The idea from the top down is partnering with governments and agencies. So for example, in Indonesia, we've partnered with the Indonesian National Parks, and we also have a local NGO, the Coral Triangle Centre, who is also supporting that area with quality assurance and support. It's also from the bottom up, and you can see in that little triangle there, that's our island community that are actually learning how to scuba dive. So they've come through this training process of, first of all, even getting in the water, putting a snorkel on, learning how to snorkel, and now they've just finished their open water PADI certification, and now they're part of the restoration team, so it's really exciting. And the idea is that we've now been able to expand that out into our other markets. So for example, in Australia, we're working with traditional owners, First Nations people, and we also have this opportunity to work in other areas as well, such in the Maldives, in Kenya as well. So I also want to touch on the perceptions, specifically to start with sustainability. You would have all seen in that video the fact that we use cable ties. It's an uncomfortable part of what our process is. And by working with Mars, we have this other ability, we have this freedom to be able to work with a company who's also developing new materials. And so we have this ability to be able to innovate and then trial new ways of being able to work. We haven't quite got there with the cable ties yet, so if anyone has any new ideas and wants to talk, let me know. And we're also acutely aware of the perception of Mars, the fact that we're using steel and we're, moving things, we're using cable ties. What's that life cycle analysis look like? And so we're currently in that process of determining what our life cycle analysis is. And it's giving us this opportunity to be able to look at how we're doing things. Can we change the way that we do our logistics? If we bring in the community members, for example, it means less boats going out to these sites and trying to cut down our carbon with that as well. We're also working with universities to learn some other information. So the University of Technology Sydney is one of them, and that's about looking at the interaction between corals and iron, because that's another perception that we've had over the previous years, even though we've seen no difference of corals by attaching them to iron. And so this forms one of the pillars of our restoration theme and our restoration research. And the idea is that we have this holistic restoration plan, and that underpins everything that we do. And the idea is to be able to further global coral reef restoration knowledge. Another perception we've had is in terms of approvals. I'm sure you've all been there working with governments and trying to work out how we can actually get these things in the water. And I'll be honest, people are scared. If you haven't seen these things before, they look really scary, and you're worried that hurricanes such as what we're about to experience here are going to wash them up on the beach. But we were lucky with starting in Indonesia. We were able to get government support and be able to have that freedom to trial. We'd been there for over 10 years before we started to try and expand that out to other areas. And so we were able to have these examples to take to governments and to groups and to permits and say, we've tried this and we've had these experiences, we've learnt from them, and we can move forward. The other part about this is about linkages with government, and we're really lucky to be able to take them along the ride and be involved in the whole process from start to finish. An example is in Australia, we've got the Joint Field Management Program as part of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, who are now part of our training program in Australia, and they're taking this technique out as one of their tools. We also have this process-based perception, and I'm sure you've all heard of it as well. That coral reef restoration is not scalable, that it doesn't restore ecosystem services. But how do we know that? And so we're doing some work with a whole range of different universities across the world. And on top of our quite intensive monitoring program, which goes a little bit further than just measuring coral cover, for example, we're now looking at a whole different heap of areas including functional traits, structural complexity, biogeochemistry, and fecundity, to make it more resolute and actually understand what do we need to do to actually be able to restore ecological function in a restored reef. There's many more obstacles and solutions that we've worked out, but I know I haven't got much time, so I just want to say thank you and more than happy to chat afterwards. So thank you.